Hi, I'm Commissioner Mike McKeon, and I'd like to welcome everyone to another episode of the Public Works Pipeline, the only television show on LMTV with a dangerous cult following. With me today is our Public Works Director, Paul McElhaney, and we're here to give a midsummer update. So, Paul, thank you very much for coming out today.
Thanks for having me again, Mike.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So, again, this is our special Mulch Madness edition. So, in our bracket to start things off, I've got wood chips, mulch, and compost. So, what can you tell us about how those materials are made?
Well, as you know, we do the leaf bag pickup and those type of things throughout the year, especially in the fall. We then take them down to our the brush and trees and stuff go through what we have is called a tub grinder. It grinds it up. That's where our wood chips come from. The leaf bags are taken down to our Waverly site where they are put in windrows. They're turned and turned into leaf compost. Both of those, and we also make some topsoil with the compost as it gets older. And all three of those products can be found at the rear gate of the Kegel complex, and it's free to the residents to come pick up. We don't load it; you have to load it yourself, but free to the residents to pick up, and we do get a lot of demand for it, especially in the spring when people are planting their flower beds and getting ready for their petunias and such.
But so for mulch, if you want that, you actually should go to the hardware store. That's one thing you can't get from the township.
Right, we don't have the general mulch, but we do have kind of a between compost and mulch that's available, yes, but straight up regular mulch, no.
But although wood chips do almost the same thing as mulch in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So you can get that there. I mean, I guess wood chips are bigger. They take a little longer to ground down.
Correct, to break
well.
down. And usually mulch is dyed. People want to have that beautiful red or that beautiful black color, that consistent color for their flower beds and so forth. Something that we're not able to do.
And we put a lot of mulch on our property for the first time in about a decade because I neglected it a lot. So, what nice thing about mulch is that it controls the soil temperature, kind of packs some things in, acts like an insulator.
It does.
And then it prevents the sunlight that comes down, and then the weeds are sitting there trying to grow out, and the weeds, because the sunlight is blocked, that suppresses weed growth, limits it. So it's helpful for that. And
it is.
Wood chips, again, they do the same thing.
Correct.
Now, wood chips, they're made from bark, right?
Yes, and actually the wood chips come from the tree itself. Like I said, we have a tub grinder unit, and if you've ever seen a tree chipper in the street or in someone taking down your tree, you watch them feed it in and it comes out as wood chips. We have what looks like a monster-sized soup bowl with a crane attachment. And literally we pick up piles of brush and small, tree pieces and branches, and it goes through, and we get wood chips that way also.
And wood chips you said are from a tree, but so is mulch too. I think mulch is the wood bark and the leaves from the tree.
Yep.
So because I got a question here from my dog, and he said even though it's made from bark, mulch can still be bad for dogs. And his point was he thinks you need to make sure you buy sort of the organic mulch, make sure there's not a lot of chemicals in there.
Yeah, it's like with compost, leaf compost and everything, temperatures, to kill the bacteria, all those type of things have to be taken care of and checked. So yes, you want to make sure you have organics and so forth.
And is that something, just so residents know, is this something that other municipalities have? Because it seems to me it's really interesting that we have our own, the Kegel complex. You can go down there and get wood chips. We have a composting site that's 17 acres on the Waverly site there in Gladwin. Is that somewhat unique to Lower Merion?
Somewhat unique. There's a few other communities that do similar. Philadelphia has a similar program, or Merion has a smaller program. So they do different degrees of what we do, yes.
And we're one of the few, though, that has its own municipal, dump or transfer station, right?
Well, yes. It's there's only two of us that still have transfer stations that are remnants, I would say, from when we had the county waste transfer system. We've always had a transfer station from when it was built. We no longer take outside municipal waste and those type of things, but essentially our waste comes in, it's put into the trucks dump into the compactor that is then pushed into a trailer. Once the trailer reaches up to 80,000 pounds, it's loaded, and then that goes to Cavanna, our waste to steam facility that we are contracted with.
And so, speaking of Cavanna and waste, I was going to get into the refuse a little bit here. So we'll go backward. We'll do recycling first.
I jump all over the place.
No, that's all right. So normally what we do for the recycling is this is the point where I bring stuff from my house, garbage, and then I throw it at the audience. The Ward 3 prop department, sadly, is on strike, so I don't have any materials.
Well, we kind of heard you were banned from throwing things again, but anyway.
Yeah, well, I had a couple kids during the Memorial Day parade, and one was an accident, just so we're
okay.
clear.
Only one, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, at least.
Probably.
All right. So you have to use your imagination. I don't know, but that's what we'll have to. Or the LMTV folks can put up some graphics here. But the lowly pizza box, is that something that we can recycle?
No, unfortunately, we do not allow recycling of pizza boxes. One of the reasons is they are greasy. They get, you get that cheese, that pepperoni, all that, and that grease gets into the box. It becomes contaminated. So pizza boxes are to be handled as regular trash.
All right, and what if I pulled a milk carton out here now? Is that something that we could recycle?
Well, are you talking milk carton or the plastic gallon?
Or not so the plastic gallon we could recycle,
you
right?
could.
Yeah, as a commingled item.
As a commingled item. Unfortunately, the other one is a waxed product that cannot be recycled. So if you're going to buy a half gallon or something and you want to be green, get that plastic container because it can be recycled.
And on the topic of dairy, egg cartons, what's up with them?
Hell, egg cartons, they say don't. If you look at the websites, they say don't. Here's the concern, is you have different types of egg cartons. If you have the traditional cardboard egg carton, yes, please recycle that.
And that would be recycled with paper?
Yes.
All right, but the waxy carton that we throw out that gets disposed of and it goes to Cavanna, trash to steam.
Unfortunately, yes. Not everything's recyclable yet.
All right, so let's say I pull out a cereal box and there's like the pouch in there before you get to the Raisin Bran. How can you recycle that?
You're just trying to be a rebel here.
Yeah.
The film that the cereal comes in, no. What that does is, yes, it's a plastic, but the issue is, much like the bags you get at the supermarket, it jams up the machinery at the plants. So please separate that, get rid of that with the regular trash. That cereal box, fold it down, put it in with your paper.
All right, light bulbs, can we recycle them?
Nope.
No? Okay.
Nope.
And aerosol cans.
Nope.
Okay.
Don't be, when you go out with and you've been out spray painting and doing whatever you might be tagging or whatever. No.
We're not here to judge.
I'm not judging, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm not judging your extracurricular activity. But no, you dispose of them with your normal refuse.
And then, you mentioned the plastic bags. That's something too in general. I know there's some residents who still will take out, 15 water bottles, commingled items. So we actually do have some stuff. They'll take those out and they'll dump them in, and they'll dump in the plastic bag in their yellow container. And
or the staff will pull up and there'll be a bag full of them, recyclables. What that really does is it really messes with the machinery where we get our recycling, where we send it. So please take a moment, open the bag, put it in the can, so that way it's recycled properly and it doesn't jam up the machinery.
LMTV has, I think, a world-class PSA that they've been running maniacally for the last few years about the plastic bags, and it shows how when it gets to the facility that those jam up the machines, and I think they have a guy with a little bit like a hatchet or something like that trying to cut loose the bags.
Yeah, that, garden hoses, those type of things, they get wound in there and it just slows down, and it just and then when those individuals rebid our contracts, they look at, did we have a lot of contamination? And if we did, and that slowed down their operations, then that's reflected in the prices they'll offer us.
I saw that the garden hoses, they can't be recycled, and that what surprised me is I don't think I've ever tried to throw out a garden hose at all. I think I have the same I don't know what's ever happened to them, but
Well, the interesting well, it should go out with your regular trash. The interesting thing is I visited the facility where we dispose of our recyclables, and I've seen the mess that a garden hose creates there for them, and it's quite an operation to get that unwound out of the machinery.
yeah, it's still wound around our house too, and that's a pain just to even. The problem is our hose is too long for the property, but I didn't.
Well, I was surprised that you even had the hose, since you said you haven't been taking care of the property and had to mulch for the first time.
Well, I think my wife has to do something.
I'm not judging.
Yeah, no, I understand. And back on the topic of recycling here, it's getting harder and harder to recycle. I think from a practical matter, we get a less of a return. We do make profit off of paper, but the return's gone down. We pay even more to get rid of our commingled. So I recommend to residents really try to reduce your use. A lot of these single-use plastics, try to reduce them because they may be geared toward recycling, but they could sit on pallets for years potentially before they're actually recycled.
Correct. But in general, recycling, it's the right thing to do. We all benefit from it, and yes, we pay to get rid of our commingle, but at the end of the day, it's saving the planet, it's helping with the environment. So at the end of the day, it's a small cost to pay.
The one prop I did have were some used medical needles, but I'm not sure where I put them. But while I'm looking do you have any tips on how to dispose of a medical
Either one
needle?
of the red containers.
Okay.
Or please take an empty soda bottle, like a 2-liter soda bottle. Put your used needles in there, seal it up so that staff doesn't get stuck. We've had people reach in, they're loose, they've gotten stuck with needles, then we have health concerns for those individuals.
Right, so put it in a red medical container or a 2-liter soda bottle. Well, that's all the time we have for part 1. Please stick around, we'll be back shortly. Hi, welcome back to the Public Works Pipeline. I'm Commissioner Mike McKeon, and one of the best things about the Public Works Pipeline is it's not behind the gavel, which is just a terrible show.
I used to do it. Our ratings are much better. So
when you say our ratings, the Public Works Pipeline
our ratings are much better,
and
yes.
that's for darn sure. I've checked it out. I've gone on to YouTube and I've looked at that a few times. So
our ratings are up.
We're up. They may have 6 watches. We've had 7 or 8 viewers, including my parents and brother.
Those extra 2, they count.
Yep. Every view makes a difference. So anyway, thanks for everyone for sticking around here. We're back, and we were talking about the needles, which can be a huge problem if they're not disposed of properly, because they can cause a really bad injury. Any other kind of injuries that are on your radar?
Yeah, I would, as you said earlier, please place the needles in the container so people don't get stuck. But if you have, say, broken window glass, that's not recyclable. Please do staff a favor. Don't put it in the trash can and bury it. And we've had incident where staff members have reached in, they don't see it, they've been cut, had to seek medical attention, place it next to the can, place it in plain sight, safely, place it in so it can be seen in a bag or a container. Don't hide, not hide it, but make sure it's seen. That way, staff's safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one thing to try to consider is like, what would put yourself in the position of the refuse collector, right? Imagine you're having to take it out there. Would this be safe? Would you feel safe pulling in there? Because that's a shame to have those kind of injuries.
Yeah, and if you think about it, you're getting cut. There's refuse. Who knows what bacteria may be in there. So that much more attention needs to be given to the laceration. It's just take that extra minute. Think about the individual that's providing service to you.
And we talked in our first segment about refuse and mulch and some different things. Public Works is the infrastructure of the township. I think there's 7 divisions, right?
There is.
And they no longer teach those 7 divisions in public school, which is a shame, because I think that is critical. But one of the other divisions is fleet, right?
Yes.
What can you tell us about fleet?
So fleet, as I've mentioned before, we're in charge of all the vehicles, all the equipment, all the police cars, all that kind of stuff. So fleet is very busy year round. This is the time of the year where we're actually starting to prepare for winter. Starting to look at the equipment, the spreaders and that kind of stuff. What do we need to buy? Because they have motors and so forth associated with them. And with the supply chain issues, we're running into issues getting things. So that's why we're starting now. We're being thoroughly prepared. We are running into issues with fleet because we buy, as I noted, all the equipment, all the police cars. We have pieces of equipment that we ordered in 2020 that are just starting to come in. We have pieces of equipment that we are planning on, we've ordered, and we're being told as far out as 2027. So fleet is interesting. Can't get brake shoes some week you can't get tires. So we never know what challenges they may face on a daily or a weekly basis.
That's what I was going to ask you about, in terms of the supply chain issues. Like, we know there are supply chain issues, but it sounds like they're very unpredictable issues too, right?
They are indeed. As I noted, our fleet manager will say, I can't get tires that are rated for the police cars, this week. And then next week, okay, we can get them, but I can't get motor oil. We just don't know day to day, week to week, what may or may not be available.
And I guess one of the things Public Works is really trying to do, knowing that, is to just order things so far in advance to try to minimize the impact from it.
We are, but we're also conscious of our budget. So we're always trying to balance expenditures and supply and making sure we're able to keep everything on the road or in the fields so that we don't impact services. So it's a very interesting balancing act, I would say.
And we say budget to it. So I've been on the Board of Commissioners for 6 years almost, and we have an equipment fund that we look at. And hypothetically, let's just say I don't understand anything about the equipment fund. Would you mind explaining how the equipment fund works?
It's very simple. As noted, Public Works has oversight or ownership of all the equipment and vehicles. So every department within the township who has a vehicle, say the police department, they essentially, it's basically bookkeeping, but they pay out of their monthly budget to our monthly budget as kind of like a rent. That money is put in the equipment fund. What that does is their rent is based on our estimation of what it would cost to replace that equipment at the end of its life cycle, so that the monies are there so we can purchase that piece of equipment without having to borrow to do so.
When you say borrow, would that come from the general fund if we had to borrow?
Or yeah, it would normally come from the general fund. So we.
I'm glad. I say after 6 years, I'm able to at least put that two and two together for that.
Or we'd have an increase in the general fund. Some municipalities and all, they don't have this, so they're faced with the challenges of where's the money coming from. Are we going to do a tax increase? Are we going to do a bond? We don't do that. We're very unique, not 100% unique, but we're unique in that we have the equipment fund. Gives us the ability to purchase and keep our equipment new and fresh. Now, as I noted, we say at the end of the life cycle, not every piece of equipment is replaced at the end of its life cycle. Sometimes we have issues and it's replaced before that. Sometimes we will extend the life cycle, 2, 3. We have pieces of equipment that their life cycle has been extended 10, 15 years. Each piece of equipment is reviewed at the end of its, on a yearly basis. We don't review every piece. We review those that we may be having issues with, those that are scheduled to be replaced, and we make decisions based on histories, their service histories, on what will or will not be replaced or will be extended out.
Oh. And another division, Shade Tree Division, there's also Shade Tree Commission?
Yes.
What's the difference between the Shade Tree Division and the Shade Tree Commission?
Shade Tree Commission, they're tasked with being an aid to the Board of Commissioners in that they have oversight of township trees within parks and within the right-of-way. And if
that's a volunteer advisory board,
it's right? A volunteer advisory board. So if you're a homeowner and you live on a township road and you want to remove a tree that's in the right-of-way, they would be the individuals that you go and make the request to, and they will determine if the tree should or should not be removed. Those type of
I think there's about 70,000 trees that would qualify as either being in the public right-of-way or public parks that falls in their
For the most part, that 70,000 number is the right-of-way itself.
Right. Okay.
So yes, so that's their role. Then our Shade Tree Division, They're tasked with the maintenance of the trees that fall within the right of way. They also help out with the trees that are in the parks when parks has something that they need assistance with.
And so those are all Public Works employees, full-time employees.
Full-time
right?
employees. We have a master certified arborist who has oversight of that division.
Which is interesting because I could swear about every 3 or 4 months someone will come out to public comment and say, you need to have an arborist in shade tree division. And
actually,
we
have more than one. We have more than one, but the individual who is the shade tree supervisor is a master arborist and does a very good job. But there's a balance for him because we trim for safety. And the volume of the trees that we have, they have to balance budget and safety, making sure safety comes first. So, but very thorough job, very knowledgeable, along with all the crew members, all the staff members. They all are very skilled, very knowledgeable, and very good at their jobs.
And the right of way, that's an area basically, like the sidewalk or your property. How would you describe the right of way?
So basically, the right of way is the area that falls on the front of your property. You actually own usually to about the center of the street, give or take. Usually the right of way is about 10 feet beyond the curb. It varies, but that's usually just kind of like a rule of thumb judgment. The trees that fall in that area. The right of way is basically the area that has been dedicated for the use of utilities, so for the public good. So if a sewer line needs a place to go, telephone pole, those type of things. It gives the utilities, it gives the township, everybody the right to be able to provide those services for the better good of the public.
And we have a good opportunity now if anyone's interested and they want to have a tree planted in the right of way of their own property, they can actually contact the township arborist at 610-726-7141. Or use the tree request form on the township website for that. So, and what will happen is the township will actually go out and inspect to make sure that all considerations are taken into place. See whether a tree can be planted, because you can't just go out and plant trees in the right of way. As you said, right, there's underground utility lines
and overhead utility lines,
yeah.
and sometimes even with an overhead utility line, they'll find a lower story tree that they can plant, an accent tree. So the arborists, they take a look at that, and if something can be planted, they put it on the list.
All right, one other thing I wanted to jump to with our, I think it would be the electrical division would handle this, but it could be highway. Sometimes we get requests about the materials being used, like some residents maybe say, I want to put in a crosswalk here. We'd like it to look a special way with, say, red bricks, things like that. What's the Public Works policy towards that kind of construction?
So we have adopted standards, and they're not part of our standards. We've been asked to look at that. The concern that we have is that a lot of those are painted applications, or they're templated applications, and there has been asked to have different variations of colors. We go for standardization. That helps us with being able to get things done quickly. Also, in the last few years, we've faced supply chain issues. If we're looking for 9 different colors and 10 different patterns, it would just be tenfold trying to do things. So we follow our standards. That way everything looks the same. We can repair it quickly and without incident.
Yeah, even if there was, say, like, cobblestones somewhere, that stuff looks nicer, but if one of those cobblestones is out of place, that's much harder to replace it than, a normal pothole or something else in the street.
Correct.
So the uniformity helps a lot.
And then what happens is if you go to other communities, you'll see some places where they've done that, and then to be able to patch things, they've put blacktop in, and it just doesn't look right, it doesn't fix right, because a lot of times you need to respond immediately.
Right. All right, well, that's all the time we have today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Paul and I really appreciate it, and please check us out next month.